Shikanoin Heizou is out now, and he is a good character. In this video, I'm going to go over his whole kit, show you guys what's good, what's bad, what's not great, what's okay, medium, mediocrity, just his talents, skills, weapons, artifacts, everything to do with him. And then we'll come to the conclusion, is he a good character, and will you want to roll for him depending on your team composition or characters that you already have available to you. So let's get into it. First thing we have to do is understand that he's a unique character compared to a lot of other characters. He's an Anemo Catalyst User, but unlike the previous Anemo Catalyst User, who is Sucrose, Shikanoin Heizou is actually a melee character. He is a bit more of a martial arts styled character, so his normal attacks, once they are catalysts, they're actually going to be melee attacks. Going on to his Heartstopper Strike, it's quite the nifty ability. You have a tap and a hold. Obviously, the tap, if you just tap it, it does a moderate amount of damage, nothing crazy. But if you hold it, you can charge it up to unleash an even stronger blow. He will obtain the declension effect while charging, which will increase the power of the Heartstopper Strike. When the skill button is released or the skill finishes charging, he will strike forward, dealing massive amounts of Anemo damage. The charge time from 0 stacks up to 4 stacks is quite lengthy, so you have to utilize his first passive to actually build up your stacks naturally, which is Paradoxical Practice, which is when Shikanoin Heizou activates a swirl reaction while on the field, he will gain 1 declension stack for Heartstopper Strike. Thus, when you get 4 stacks of declension off-field or on-field before his skill is usable, you can immediately use a maximum power Heartstopper Strike. That's going to be very important to using him, is actually managing your declension stack, so bear that in mind. Moving on to his Windmuster Kick or his Elemental Burst. This is quite a interesting one. It's kind of hard to showcase in the test run, but he leaps into the air and uses the Fudo-style Vacuum Slugger and kicks his opponent. Essentially, he will shoot out an Anemo projectile. The Vacuum Slugger will explode upon hit and create an arresting wind tunnel that pulls in nearby objects and opponents, dealing AoE Anemo damage. Essentially, like a miniature Sucrose E or maybe a miniature Sucrose Burst. When Vacuum Slugger hits opponents affected by all of the elements except Anemo and Geo, these opponents will be affected with Windmuster Iris. This is a cool effect. This Windmuster Iris will explode after a moment and dissipate, dealing AoE damage of the corresponding aforementioned elemental type. So he has essentially 2 hits of his actual elemental burst. The initial hit, which will suck in enemies, and then the follow-up hit, which is the Windmuster Iris, which will kind of like pulse out, kind of like Tartaglia's skill kind of pulsation when you hit multiple enemies. It'll kind of do that with the corresponding element that you did infuse it with. It's a really cool ult. And if you're in need of a secondary sucker-up character, if you don't have Kazuha, if you don't have Venti, and you only have Heizou and Sucrose, this is actually a really good character. His burst is on a low energy cost of 40 and a cooldown of 12 seconds, so it's highly available, and it does a pretty decent amount of damage as well, being AoE, so it's pretty useful overall. Going on to his passives though, we looked at the first one, Paradoxical Practice, onto the second one, Penetrative Reasoning. After Shikanoin Heizou's Heartstopper Strike hits an opponent, increasing all party members, excluding Shikanoin Heizou, Elemental Mastery by 80 for 10 seconds. This is actually quite an interesting one. He's an Anemo character that increases Elemental Mastery, which gives me the idea that he might be super useful in a multiple Anemo sucker-up characters. Maybe you run Heizou, Kazuha, with then 2 Pyro characters maybe, or Heizou, Kazuha, Sucrose, and then 1 other element just to do a bit of infusion. Sounds really interesting, but overall 80 Elemental Mastery increase pretty much all the time. Going on to his constellations, these are actually some really high value constellation in my honest opinion. Starting off with number 1, named Juvenile Casebook. For 5 seconds after Shikanoin Heizou takes the field, his normal attack speed is increased by 15%. God damn, I wish every character could get this 15% attack speed when he enters the field. He also gains 1 declension stack for Heartstopper Strike when he enters the field, and this can be triggered once every 10 seconds, so quite frequently. This kind of smooths out his gameplay. Get 1 extra declension stack straight away, cause 3 elemental reactions, you get 4, then you do the attack. Your attack speed is increased, so it's all A-OK, all-rounder great. As for the second constellation, the pull effect of the arresting wind tunnel created by Windmuster Kick is enhanced. He's just got a stronger pull, he's got a stronger suck, however you want to word it, and its duration is increased by 1 second, so you can kind of group enemies a lot better. Going on to number 3 though, Tome of Lies. The first Windmuster Iris explosion in each Windmuster Kick will regenerate 9 elemental energy for Shikanoin Heizou. Then every subsequent explosion in that Windmuster Kick will each regenerate additional 1.5 energy for Heizou. 1 Windmuster Kick can only regenerate a total of 13.5 energy for Heizou in this manner. I want to say this is not that great, but it kind of is because he only has 40 energy. If you take into the consideration that he can get literally a third of his energy just from pressing his burst back, It's pretty crazy that he can do that. So this is a great constellation if you just want to smoothen out his play style and usage, making his burst a little bit more easier to use, get it faster, lower cooldown, just kind of spam it all the time. And then going on to C6, each declension stack on his elemental skill will increase the crit rate of his Heartstopper strike unleashed by 4% per stack. So you can get a total of, quick maths, 16% extra crit rate on his Heartstopper strike only. Then, when Heizou possesses Conviction, which is just having 4 declension stacks, this Heartstopper strike's crit damage is increased by 32%. So this is a really high value damage constellation. You get a 16% crit rate boost on his skill, as well as a 32% crit damage boost on his skill when you have 4 stacks of declension, which then gives you Conviction. Going on to his best weapon though, this is pretty much all of them. The only 5-star that's not usable on him is the Everlasting Moonglow. Every other one is great. Lost Prayer gives the crit rate boost if you need it. Skyward Atlas and Memory of Dust do give a base attack, which he scales finely with as long as you have a shield for Memory of Dust. And Kagura's Verity gives you a massive crit damage boost with a lot of extra boosting in his ability. But if you don't have any of the 5 stars, worry not. 4 stars are great. All of them are probably great. If they have any amount of attack boosting, crit rate, crit damage boosting, they're great. You probably don't want to go for energy recharge on the weapon because he already has a super low energy cost. And if you even get C4, you'll be able to have a lot of energy. So energy recharge weapons are probably off the table. Base attack weapons, Dodoko Tails works fine. Eye of Perception probably also works fine. The Mapamare, which is an elemental mastery weapon, could also work absolutely amazing. Elemental mastery on the Anemo character is super powerful. Now it's really up to what you have available to you. If you have elemental mastery Mapamare, go for that. If you don't and you only have the Witsith, which is crit damage, that's also great. The Witsith is a great option. Shikanoin Heizou is a very open to whatever weapon you have available to you kind of character because he doesn't scale with any stats specifically, as well as being Anemo, so it makes elemental mastery even stronger. So whatever you have available, use that. Just not energy recharge. As for artifacts, this one's always a bit contentious on the day of the character's launch, but bear with me, I think Viridescent Vanera 4 set is great if you want to use him as the debuffer in the party, as well as have him do massive amount of damage with Elemental Mastery Anemo. So you can use Viridescent Vanera, but you could also use Noblesse Oblige Viridescent Vanera. The 2 set of both is great, and you'll be able to get yourself a lot of burst damage. If you want to boost his burst damage even further, you could by all means go for the Emblem of Severed Fate from Inazuma. Just stack a lot of energy recharge, you'll be able to have your burst up all the time, and your burst will be doing a lot of damage. But this is a bit more if you want to switch in, switch out with Shikanoin Heizou. I'm looking at the artifacts here, and Shimanal's Reminiscence doesn't sound terrible. When casting an elemental skill, if the character has 15 or more energy, they will lose that energy, and normal and charge and plunging attacks increase by 50%. It sounds great in my opinion. If you want to use him as an active DPS, this is not for switching in and out because you want him to have a lot of energy. So if you want to use him as active, Shimanal's Reminiscence doesn't sound that bad. You can run 2 18% attacks, that also works fine. But generally speaking, I think you'll get the most value out of 4 set Viridescent Vanera. Going on to Shikanoin Heizou's playstyle, he has 2 very distinct playstyles. You can use him as the active character because he has active character potential, or you can use him as a switch in, switch out passive kind of character. He has potential for that as well. The only difference is that if you want to use him as an active character, he gains an exponential amount of value by getting more constellations due to his C6 being so great, as well as his C4 giving him more energy recharge, or essentially energy rather. Whilst if you want to use him as the switch in, switch out kind of passive character, only using his elemental burst and skill as you see fit and have it, then you can kind of use this from C0 and onwards. You don't get much more value from doing it. Probably C4 is the final mark, but even then, low energy cost, 40, you're always going to have your burst up regardless. And these 2 distinct playstyles, they're both probably viable. Shikanoin Heizou, I think he's going to be able to do a lot of damage. The 32% crit damage boost on his C6 to his skill is crazy, and I think his skill will actually do a lot of damage if you build your Shikanoin Heizou accordingly. As for team composition though, I think Shikanoin Heizou fills pretty much the role of Kazuha. There's not really much else to say. He doesn't do it exactly like Kazuha, and he's not going to do the same damage boosting, but if you yourself can't get a Kazuha from the current Kazuha banner, then I think Shikanoin Heizou is an absolutely great substitute. He has the grouping capabilities, he also has the damage capabilities. Might not be the same level of Kazuha because Kazuha is supreme at this point, but Shikanoin Heizou can do it great. As well, if you don't want to use any of the 5-star Anemo guys, then you also have Heizou and Sucrose to combo in, and they're both 4-star Anemo sucker-uppers. So go ahead and use those two. He's going to be a great character. Just sad he didn't get a new weapon called the Gauntlets or the fighting gloves or whatever. I just wish he got a new weapon. And that's all the fundamentals of Shikanoin Heizou. I think he's going to be an absolute banger of a character. If you do happen to get him, I think you'll be able to build him quite easily. There's a lot of good weapons for him. In terms of playstyle, he has 2 different playstyles, distinct playstyles that are both probably viable in the future. Obviously, gameplay techniques and little gimmicks are going to be found out as time goes on, but, now is now and then is then. As for should you strive to get higher constellations, in my opinion, there's no need to worry about getting constellations. He's actually super high value even without his constellation and only gets better. Probably the only constellation that will super matter is his C4, maybe just to lock in all that, the energy, if you don't want to get any actual energy recharge through artifacts, but that's about it. He's going to be a great character, and hope you guys enjoyed playing him, and also hope you enjoyed the small little guide that I made. If you did, like, subscribe, and have a great day. See you in the next video. Bye!